All right, let's talk about Aquarius women. These are very ephemeral people, hard to pin down, but hopefully this video is gonna help you understand them a little bit better. Aquarius women generally don't love dating apps. That's a huge generalization, but typically when you meet these people in your life, you've met them through some sort of chance encounter, or you've met them through friends or work, but when you met them, it was sort of significant or a poignant moment. You kind of hit it off right away in that moment, and then you instantly made some kind of connection. Aquarius women are exotic, they're unique. They 100% stand out from the crowd. They're not doing what everyone else is doing. They usually have a really unique and awesome sense of dress, just like good taste in music. Like they're really just like freaking cool people, no lies. Talk to them for even a little bit and you'll immediately realize also how intelligent they are. They're witty or self-aware. They just have a little bit of an otherworldliness about them that doesn't make them like other girls or other women. Having said all that, your experience attempting to date an Aquarius woman or date them or be in a relationship with them will also be equally kind of unique. Aquarian women, for them, romance is not necessarily very linear or storybook, definitely not traditional. Romance for them is actually like a little bit clunky. They're much more comfortable with friendship. They make friends very quickly and they can make bonds with other friends extremely quickly. It's actually not uncommon to be friends with an Aquarius woman before you start dating them or becoming romantically involved with them. Or if you have been dating an Aquarius woman for a while, like you might really notice when you think about it that your relationship actually is marked by a strong sense of friendship between you two. Like, yes, it's romantic. Yes, there's physical and sexual passion, but you're also like each other's really, really good friends. Aquarius is an air sign, which means they tend to live, as a generalization, more a life of the mind, a life of ideals and thoughts and principles and philosophies. Friendship is an ideal. Friendship is something that they value. They are always kind of thinking about humanitarian goods and humanitarian institutions. Friendship is undoubtedly a humanitarian and social good. And typically friendship for them doesn't have to be as kind of emotionally entrenching or confusing to them in the same way that a romantic relationship will be. You can actually see Aquarius women who go on for a long period of time being mostly fine, kind of single, you know, maybe having some things here and there, but just not being bent out of shape, that they're mostly just kind of independent and do their own thing. They're not on anyone's timeline. They're certainly not following the, oh, I need to like get married and have kids by like X age, you know, treadmill. Like they don't give a hoot about that. One of the stereotypes of Aquarius energy, and it definitely applies to Aquarian women to a general degree, is that they are extremely independent. They are somewhat aloof, detached. They are unconcerned with carving their own path. And so when you first start talking to them or you're starting the early dating stages, sometimes it can be sort of difficult to know where you stand. They're sort of notoriously inflexible in that way. You know, if they don't have room in their schedule or they're kind of have to like move things around in order to make it happen, they're just gonna kind of be like, all right, let's do it another time, right? And they're not thinking emotionally about that, so don't take that personally too much. It's sort of a slow process getting to know an Aquarius woman. You're not going to get her deep on an emotional level for a while, maybe ever. You know, it's not something that Aquarius is necessarily very comfortable with. Aquarian women kind of represent this interesting contradiction, right? Where they're tremendously humanitarian focused, right? They usually are involved in a cause like a nonprofit or some political issue or a charity or, you know, something like that. Regardless of the affiliation, there's usually some way for the Aquarian woman to get involved with like an overarching cause for good, a cause that benefits a large group of people, which clearly demonstrates a genuine care for other people. Aquarian women definitely have that deep care and regard for others, except it's a little hard for them to actually feel or express that on the individual level. Someone is like rude to them, or someone is having a tough day, or someone makes a mistake, and it's like like suddenly that whole humanitarian care they supposedly have is kind of out the door, and they can actually be like a little bit bitchy in a one-on-one scenario, or just like cold or a little unfeeling. And sometimes it's a little bit surprising. It's actually not so much mean or malicious. It's just almost like such emotional detachment where it's like, okay, and this affects me how, you know, like kind of like not my problem sort of attitude, which Aquarian women do have a lot of empathy, and they are highly emotional, very emotional, but it's a little bit more complex for them, and it's a little bit more, I wouldn't say buried. You can say it's buried, you can say it's repressed, and sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not just that though. It's more just like there's a lot of mental and conceptual filters that those emotions have to go through, or mental walls that Aquarian women put up. It's hard for them to feel things first, like they need to understand it first, and once they start getting in the process of understanding things, like by the time the emotion gets through, it's like at some point of having to go through all those, you know, mental hoops and mental circuitry, the emotion just kind of gets tired and says, look, I'm gonna go home, and then just kind of goes back to wherever it was buried before. The other thing is that Aquarian females are very aware of the way that females expressing emotions have been portrayed in movies and contemporary culture and, you know, modern Western society, and they're very aware how people see that as a weakness. They want nothing to do with that, right? They're incredibly strong people, and they'd still be strong if they express those emotions, but they don't want to stand anywhere near these very stereotypical ideas of like the weeping, helpless, overly dependent woman who's completely just on a string around the finger of another person, man, another situation. Like, they are independent, so they kind of walk around all of that. I will say though, sometimes this is just an excuse for Aquarius woman to not have to really deal with her own emotions, right? She kind of comes up with this sort of ideological reason why she doesn't want to feel them. She thinks, oh, these are not a good use of my time. What does this really accomplish? Oh, I'm just gonna demonstrate weakness and someone's gonna use that against me, which may or may not be fair, but we all kind of need to be able to feel our own emotions, and we do need to be able to speak that language, right? That's really how we make the rawest connections with other people. And I do think sometimes Aquarius women, it's not natural for them, and sometimes they step a little too far away from that challenge for themselves. They are a little bit resistant to sometimes pushing themselves outside of their comfort zone because they just don't like it, or emotions are a little embarrassing, and they use excuses like that. That's not to say that they don't have emotions, like I said. In fact, some Aquarian women will perhaps be some of the most kind of piercing, thoughtful, articulate, like psychoanalysis around, you know, if not professionally, at least for their friends or for you as their partner. They can really like get to the core and put it into words of like what you're feeling. The problem is that sometimes it doesn't come from a place of just genuine love. Like sometimes it comes from a place of analysis, which at times might be helpful and other times might be freaking annoying, right? Like sometimes you want a partner to still be able to validate your emotions, or just be present with you and give you some compassion, even if you're upset over something silly, or even if you're upset during a conflict and maybe ultimately like you are the person that was in the wrong in the conflict. It's really hard when even like going off the plank and saying, yes, this was like completely my fault and I'm sorry. And you just kind of want that like embrace, that loving embrace from an Aquarius woman. And sometimes they're just like, yeah, like that was your fault. Like, you're right. Like, that's because you do this, and that's because when you know, it reminds you of your mom when you do this. And so and sometimes it's just like, yeah, I know all that. I just don't want it. That's just so cold right now. I just need a little bit of warmth sometimes. The other irony is that sometimes Aquarius women like are not able to do the same things for themselves, right? So they're always trying to give therapy to other people or diagnose or explain the problem for other people, but then they're curiously bad at kind of not making, their own equivalent versions of the same mistakes. So I don't know, that can be a little annoying, but what you get from Aquarius woman is someone that is, again, truly unlike any other person that you've ever met. Each Aquarius woman is almost like from another planet, right? They're a gift. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, a higher order, slow moving planet, which bestows them with just amazing mental gifts. Like you'll see an Aquarius do something or solve a problem or have some piece of knowledge, and it'll continually blow you away. Like, how do you know that? Or where did you learn that? Or like, how are you so wise? They're very much those women that have old souls, right? They can give you that sage advice. And they also get an extremely bad rap for being sort of like unloyal or not very good at monogamous relationships. It's not really fair, I would say, right? Like Aquarius, they're highly loyal and devoted to their ideals, right? And so when their ideal is a monogamous partnership or it is another person, this is usually like after you've gotten well into the relationship, into the committed phase. They are so loyal, you know, at that point, especially if, you know, they've communicated that. I mean, like if you get married, obviously, but you know, if you've gotten to a point in the relationship where you're not there, but you've kind of communicated expectations, like Aquarius will view that as sort of a contract and they hold themselves to it. Things where people say that they're like not loyal is more like when there's different expectations about what it means to show up in the relationship, and those expectations haven't been discussed, or assumptions have been placed on the partners by the other partner, and those assumptions just came from like how one person might see a situation. Like you really can't make assumptions with Aquarius women, right? Especially in the early stage. And this is usually an area that's, you know, prime for people getting hurt, miscommunications, all that. It's very important to just be upfront and communicate. Aquarian women love that directness. They love the ownership of being able to just say, hey, this is like where I'm at. They don't really like games because they don't see the value of it. And they're looking at everything in terms of like, is this making a world a better place? And all those kind of silly, immature things, like they don't really have a lot of patience for. The other thing to keep in mind is that they do need a lot of independence, but they don't, again, see this as kind of like a game where they're trying to like make you miss them more or something like that. Like they take independence because they just have like a lot of other shit that they're into and a lot of hobbies and other people they want to see, right? And they're not always going to be thinking about you. Don't try to like approach that as like, ooh, you know, I'll win them over so that eventually like they'll be with me a lot more, or think about it as this like power struggle game, right? Because like, yes, over time, like you two are going to get closer if it becomes more of a committed partnership, and that distance will narrow a little bit, but there's always going to be that need for independence, right? And so if that's not you, you're going to have a tough time. You're going to be anxious. Like people that have more of an anxious attachment style, probably Aquarius woman is like not a good fit for you, just straight up. Obviously, this is a generalization. We have to look at the whole chart, all the, you know, my spiel, but just know that if you're attracted to intelligent, sexy women, if you love a beautiful brain, a beautiful mind, if you want kind of a life of devotion to different things, to different interests, to learning, to exploring, Aquarius woman is going to be a great life partner for you. If you want someone that, you know, you want to have sort of a soul level bond with, that you kind of want to spend most or all of your time with, that you want sort of to be in a, you know, sort of very traditional kind of female wife type role where they're the housewife and they're just kind of there waiting for you with dinner when you get back. This is the wrong sign, wrong woman for you. 100%, it's just not gonna work. So hopefully this is helpful. This is it for now. Thanks for watching.